Hi dear friends, good morning. Welcome to my channel. It's Akshadari by Devraj. ಇವತ್ತಿಂದ different method of reading the newspaper and also newspaper read ಮಾಡೋದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ರೇಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ so that I would tell you in the video. So I hope you guys are working and preparing to improve your communication in English, and you guys are learning great, working great, and earning great. So let me start today's newspaper with a different strategy to improve your communication in English. Let's start today's newspaper. Yes, guys, let me start today's newspaper, the Hindu Bangalore edition. So ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಫ್ರಂಟ್ ಪೇಜಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ರಿ. ಸೊ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ದ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಆನ್ ದ ಫ್ರಂಟ್ ಪೇಜ್ highlights, not any other than that, and also editorial page. Let me start reading. Yes, this is the front page. Yes, after slight delay, monsoon to set in over Kerala on June 4th. Rajouri Poonch pose appeal task. 9 killed in firecracker unit blast in Bengal. 2 accused in killing of Mewai's Farouj held. Apoti high cost in the maternal care. Families felt doctor visits were not needed. Don't create atmosphere of fear, quote cautions ED. It is a shocking state of affairs. The ED is running amok. They are threatening excise officers. COVID hit academic skills on road to recovery, finds survey. Kasi Tribal Council order on surname sets of row in matrilineal Meghalaya. Kalika Chetarike has improved students' learning ability, says survey. CBSE exam. These institutions record excellent results. Samaya Chakra Ragamala program on Friday. Man arrested for smoking inside aircraft. Clerk loses 25,000 while buying a headphone online. Congress manifesto's promise of new BBMP law likely to delay in signal civic force. Even to discuss digital achieving and universal access on Friday. BU relieves several UVCE staff from service. 3.59 lakh jobs given to youth in last 9 months. Union Minister. Karnataka Cooperative Milk Producers Federation Limited. Don't know what is how it is 3.59 lakhs. The day up the apprentice. A multi-city report reveals that during financial year 2022, various industries in India had been generous with their stipend payouts. Here is the elite stipend ಬಗ್ಗೆ important ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆದರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಓದಬಹುದು, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದರೆ ಬಿಡ್ಬೋದು. And also here ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಬ್ ಓಪನಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ನೋಟಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಯು ಗೈಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ go accordingly. Striking a balance between castes and regions to be a daunting task for Congress. Sandesh Javali, Shumaga Ranghana director resigns. Congress turning state into Gunda Raj Katil. Final chance to modify the CET 2023 application details. KIOCL Limited, Ganti Venkat Kiran assumes charge. BJP gets set for organizational requirement of new party president. Devegowda will contest Lok Sabha polls in 2024, says Revana. Coming together of DSS factions help to consolidate SC communities. SC transpose endorsal upon caste to Kerala HC. Supreme Court says with the compensation paid, the only factor left is the provision of medical and palliative care for the victims. The High Court will be in a better position to monitor that aspect. Judges as the Kerala Chief Justice to leave the case before his bench or assign any other bench. 5 more deaths take spurious liquor trial to 22. Rose respite has mercury reaches 45 degrees Celsius in APX Minister murder case. OSRCP MP to be accused on May 19th. AP and GMR Group conduct land survey at Bhogapuram. And it begins probe into haul of methamphetamine of Kochi. The rising tide of dictatorship. Let me read this editorial page, guys. ಈ editorial page ಏನಂತ ನೋಡೋಣ. Rajasthan smooth spells some hope for gig workers. The rising tide of dictatorship. So let me read this dictatorship. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. George Santayana. The great tragedy of times is the failure to come to grips with the decline of democracy and its failure to accept the new age of autocracy and its democratizing of violence. In the context of the present decline in the very idea of the democracy, there is a need to reflect on the changing political dynamics in a post-industrial age. In particular, the genealogy of fascism as experienced in the traditional forms of dictatorship and evolution towards the contemporary notions of the brute power of the state not only outly repute or sneer at democracy but rather go to great lengths to deceitfully annex democratic practices. The revelation about the evil capabilities of the human race was shown in the first Holocaust era, as Hannah Arendt points out in her book Origins of Totalitarianism. We can no longer afford to take that which is good in the past, which is good in the past, and simply call it our heritage. To discard the bad and simply think of it as a dead load which by itself time will bury in oblivion. The subterranean stream of Western history has finally come to the surface and usurped the dream of our tradition. This is abundantly obvious from the wreckage of the two wars and the rise of the fascism scaring the deep-seated liberal philosophy prevailing in Europe. Humanity capability for evil casts a murky shadow on our vision of history, where the triumph of democracy always seemed inevitable. An era of strident nationalism. It is not true that humanity cannot learn from history, it can, and in the case of the lessons of the dark period between 1914 and 1945, the West did, but it seems to have forgotten those lessons. We are living once again in an era of strident nationalism and xenophobia. The hopes of a brave new world of progress, harmony, and democracy, raised by the market opening of the 1980s and the collapse of Soviet communism between 1989 and 1991, have turned it into ashes. It is a common fact of history that is often repeats itself, especially when people forget that war or dictatorship or ethnic belligerence are not a solution to any conflict. Revolutions like those in France and Russia that gave an individual absolute power, as in the case of Napoleon and Stalin, respectively, inevitable nosedive as failed empires under brutal dictatorships. Similarly, widespread corruption, high crime rates, governmental incompetence, and the rule of law fail to awaken humanity to the realization that such conditions are a harbinger of the imperceptible rise of the strongman politics. Similarly, dictatorship accompanied by violence and death are forgotten by the public, which blindly begin to put faith in a leadership that projects competence and ability to advance welfare of the people and the country through camouflaging violence only to evoke affection and respect from the masses. It is a clear fact of history that societies learn nothing from the tyranny that a nation bears. After Stalin's brutal regime of secret police and leader worship, Cuban revolutionaries allowed their charismatic revolutionary leader to seize absolute power, disallowing any political opposition. Suppression of information to this day is widespread, and independent journalism is prohibited in Cuba. It stands to conclusion then that humanity still has not learned from the brutal regimes that brought violence and bloodshed in their wake, giving way to new forms of tyranny. Lessons from history fade away and nations continue to repeat their sleep ups. To fully comprehend the history of dictatorship, one has to examine the various shades and times in which they surface it from time to time. Though the idea of authoritarian power remains eternal in man's ambition, the complexion may change while the abyss of power remains. To understand the changing phase of despotism, Spin Dictators by Sergei Guriev and Daniel Treisman elaborates through serious research on the abuse of modern communication technology by authoritarian regimes for propaganda, giving birth to manipulative and not bloody dictatorship of the past. Understandably, the use of brute force in the past gives way to the use of the technological means to subjugate public opinion. Hitler and Stalin are replaced by Russians Putin, Firuz Fujimori, Venezuela Chavez, Hungary's Orban, and Turkey's Erdogan. A subservient media. For the last few decades, violence has reduced substantially as a weapon for retaining power. Advancement in technology is strategically employed in manipulate and govern public opinion through deceit, lies, and deceptions under the smoke screen of safeguarding the institution of democracy. In exchange of reliability and acceptance, non democratic leaders allow a certain amount of dissent in the independent media. Outright censorship is replaced by indiscriminate regulations and lawsuits. Elections are made to look fair and honest through money manipulation and the creation of a cult leadership that go all cut all out to create a mass appeal. Mass incarceration of or extermination has gradually morphed into majoritarian brute force, supported and dropped by subservient media that tactfully spins a public discourse which at its face seems to be democratic but in reality is for right wing in a when it's a socio-political barrage of the public. This is apparently different from North Korea's Kim Jong Un, Syria's Bashar al-Assad, or Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Salman, who openly use subjugation, expurgation, and physical punishment to remain in power. Vladimir Putin, for example, has given up the charade of posing as a democratic leader. The Ukraine war has let the cat out of the bag. Public opinion now has turned substantially antagonistic. Vladimir Putin therefore no longer falls into the category of non-violent dictator of the present. Grieve, writing in the Financial Times in April, has revised its appraisal of Vladimir Putin's place in the diversity of autocrats and despots. Putin's regime has completed its reversion from a 21st century spin dictatorship to a 20th century dictatorship based on fear, as in the detention and extermination of his political opponent Alexei Navalny. Vladimir Putin's dexterous manipulation gave way to brute force, doublespeak, and censorship. Ring right-wing intellectuals indeed continually endeavor to strengthen the discourse of nationalism through the politics of image building and exceptionalism, which captures the attention of the gullible masses. The triumphalism of the supporters of democracy now seems to be a distant cry, giving place to an outright authoritarianism that stands out as the single most defining feature of global politics. Criticism is conveniently pushed to the fringes, while the dominant party discourse remains in full force, incessantly brainwashing the public within doublespeak and sensible censoring through a sophisticated means of surveillance and propaganda. A channel supposedly hearing free debate is merely I was for showcasing a certain amount of democratic inclinations of the despotic leadership through a superficially credible appearance of democratic adherence in all policy making. The geist of the post-Holocaust brutality that looked with hope at the word of justice and freedom awaiting humanity has fallen by the wayside. Our primary concern at the moment must therefore be to come to grips with the idea that either we face the end of a free world to or put all our hope in the undying forces of democratic impulse in the humanity to and finally overcome the rising tide of tyranny. This is about democratic conditions in democratic conditions in different countries, including Cuba, Ukraine, Russia, tripping trade. Rajasthan's move spells some hope for gig workers. Swiggy workers gave them something and some information ಇದೆ ಅವರಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ so they have can read it. Rajasthan's move spells some hope for gig workers. The Chief Minister of Rajasthan announced earlier this year that the state would set up India's first welfare fund called the Rajasthan Platform Based Gig Workers Social Security and Welfare Fund. This is the first real instance of a regulatory move to onboard and platform workers' vulnerabilities since the Code on Social Security was passed in 2020. The code came amid the COVID-19 pandemic when platform workers became the backbone of metropolitan logistics, acting to serve customers and working with hand for state governments in their food relief schemes. Many states are ready to act. In 2023, many state governments are ready to pass rules that govern how they will implement the code on social security. This has raised concerns over how fast gig and platform workers can gain benefits in a scenario where they are seen as independent contractors. Thus, they are made to follow rules that constitute an employment relationship. Rajasthan stands out as a first mover, making haste with the state facing assembly elections next year. Since independence, construction workers, dock workers, and loaders have had boards set up for their well-being. Thus, the Rajasthan platform-based gig workers welfare board will be a familiar institution that can be used to serve the needs of a technology-mediated workforce. The board, a tripartite institution with representatives from the bureaucracy, employers, clients, and workers' unions or associations, exists as a workaround to what is otherwise embedded in formal employment. The latter, an employment contract and contributory worker benefits, bring together worker and state and employer in conversation with each other. This relationship is meant to ensure quick communication in moments of failure where workers or fail employees do not get their due, and enable better communication between the parties. In sectors that have more informal workers, there is no straightforward way to deliver benefits since on paper employment relationships are missing. Therefore, the state also does not find workers to work to give them benefits. That tripartite relationship has to be built to force employers to acknowledge that they have informal workers, for workers to collectivize to bring a common voice to their concerns, and for the state to liaise and mediate this relationship. Tied down in the specifics. The Rajasthan's platform-based gig workers welfare board aims to deliver social security benefits to between 3 to 4 lakh workers in the state, but is tied down in what kind of schemes and programs it can be set up. It can set up. The Code on Social Security gives state labor ministers the mandate of choosing from a bucket, the narrow bucket of programs on provident fund, employment, injury benefit, housing, educational schemes for children of workers, skill upgrading, and funeral assistance, key protection schemes such as life and disability cover, health and maternity benefits, old age protection and education will only be started and funded by the central government, which can decide which states will get these central schemes, their duration, and what kind of gig and platform workers will be eligible for schemes and programs. This restriction could be further exacerbated by a lack or shortage of funding. To address this, the code mandates platforms to share 1.22% of their revenue for these new schemes. Answering a key question of central and state governments as to who pays for gig and Platform worker protections. The construction worker board uses a similar avenue to take money that amounts to 1 to 2% of the project cost from real estate companies and builders for worker well-being. While charging construction projects and revenue is a simple way to fund a board, it will not be as simple to do so in the platform economy context. Many platform companies operate as revenue negative or have to raise debt or equity funding to make it year to year. Questions about how the Rajasthan government made the financial allocation of 200 crore, where this has come from, or how platforms will be charged with their financial responsibility remain unanswered. The challenge ahead. Worker boards in India have been thought of as a way to build long-term relationship between the workers and the state apart from their more operational role in creating a tripartite forum and implementing schemes. There has been a lot of criticism against the construction board that is doesn't provide benefits that are useful enough to offset the time, money, and other resources workers have to spend in order to register and access benefits. This time will tell how a gig and platform worker board will fare when gig and platform workers are time poor, considering that they often work for piecemeal wages that are structured through hourly or daily time commitments to platforms. This has been a significant challenge for collectivization attempts. It is also unclear whether Rajasthan or any other state will be able to fill the gap in labor rights for platform and gig workers. The Code on Social Security doesn't consider how to handle the labor rights of gig and platform workers. Rather, it only seeks to give them protections from vulnerable aspects of the work. Nonetheless, the initiation of the board is a big win for platform workers and unions which have been fighting to get their issues heard. The fact that the board is being set up before 2024 stands out in the midst of political chatter that states will not implement the new codes until after the general election in 2024. Let me go to the next page. This gig welfare fund for gig workers. This has been made and this announcement ರಾಜಸ್ಥಾನ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟಿಂದ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಆದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟೇಟು ಕೂಡ ಇದನ್ನು ಅಳವಡಿಸಿಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಗಿಗ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ಗೋ ಟು ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪೇಜ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟು ಅಂದರೆ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ರೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಕ್ಟೇಟರ್ಶಿಪ್, ಇದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟು. And Rajasthan's move spells some how far gig workers. This is important too. The rebooting of the Congress. Apadia family high costs hinder maternal health care. Affected to lose seat. Bill introduced. 9 dead in explosion at illegal firecracker in unit in Bengal. Shipma presses his case, talks inconclusive. The accused in 1990 killing of Marwaz Faluk arrested. With militants changing tack, Rajouri Poonch sector in an appeal task for security agencies. Non-violating sanctions on Russian oil, says after EU Minister's charge. Collegium recommends AP Chief Justice senior advocates as seat judges. Leading firms enthusiastic about investing in India will meet CEOs next week. S rejects petitions seeking review of EWS quota verdict. India moves closer to getting its first indigenous vaccine against dengue. Yes, guys, I'm going to end this video now. I hope this is enough actually. So if there is any updates today news, I will give the updates maybe later. So please read the newspaper for minimum 2 hours to improve our communication in English. So I'm very happy to teach you the English language and make you very fluent in the upcoming days in the next 30 days. If anybody interested to join for the classes, please write to me at aksharadare.india@gmail.com. So I will get back to you with right course for you. So I hope you guys are enjoyed the reading and see you in the upcoming video. Have a great day. Bye bye. Take care.